right. Hey, hi.
Hi.
This the vibes seem a little off. Something big happened in the last week or so.
Um, yeah, I've been doing a lot of traveling. Oh, that's not what we're talking about, is it? Um, Married at First Sight UK, I think, has come to a conclusion. We watched the last few episodes.
Oh yeah, how's that going?
Um, and that's going. There's been shocks. There's been all sorts. Just the upset, or maybe the upset wasn't about that. What have you guys been up to? I think I get the feeling that
Uh,
that you maybe, I don't know, if you and a few of your neighbours got round, I don't know, a log fire and made some sort of big decision.
yeah, America's made some sort of decision, that's for sure.
It's made a decision. Actually, well, I mean, to be fair, you've made quite a conclusive decision. There was no prevaricating about this decision. You've definitely asked for something and got something.
Well, let's be clear. Half of the people who voted asked for something.
Well, just over half.
Just over half. Sure.
So significant.
All right.
Sorry.
Yeah, we could. Yeah,
we've just had the past 14 years of doing rubbish like this, so it's about time that I could look over at you guys and goes,
what are y'all doing over there?
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a whole thing I could say about human factors and how about politics and how what we do as human factors profession. I might say it later, but yeah, boy, yeah, woof, yeah. So we took last week off because apparently, I don't know. I couldn't sit on here and pretend like everything was okay last week for sure. That would have been tough.
It would have been a tough shout. I mean, I guess take us back to.
Oh no! We were talking about doing an election night stream, and I was like, we could do. Gosh,
that would have been a car crash.
It really would have been.
But it would have been exciting because
you would have just seen me with my head in my hands the whole time.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, look at it objectively. Thankfully, it's not my country, so though technically, so I can look at it with a level of objectivity. It was really interesting seeing the run up to it. Harris was going to storm every state. All the polling was showing that was all good, and then just people happened. And I've got to be honest, this is one of the things I do love about democracy of itself, because no matter how much science, no matter how much the pundits who are talking convince themselves of what's going to happen, that they know everything what's going on, the general public do have a way of going, I want to do something different. And they sure did this time. Or they went back to what they knew, or they thought they knew. So yeah.
Well, my new thing is, I guess my new favorite thing is just seeing people getting what they voted for. I don't know. It's very different this time compared to last time. It's really interesting just in terms of like where the show is at, because last time, we started this show back in 2016. Something else big happened in 2016. You bet it did. And so the show, in a few years here, we'll have more years under him than anything else. But it's really, we try not to be political here, as much as we.
As much as two left-leaning guys can be.
As much as two left-leaning guys can be. It's hard not to when like I was telling you, Barry, before the show, like human factors is not neutral.
Mm-hmm.
It's not neutral. It's a discipline. It's a field solely on improving the lives of people. And so when you have the leader of this country who people want in office and has said something negative about just about everyone out there, It really baffles me from that perspective. But like, I think we could just keep on keeping on with trying to make sure that things are uh, kosher and right for people to use. And yeah, so just coming back to the thing I had mentioned, it's weird because I remember putting out a message, right before 2016. It's like, go vote, blah blah blah. And then this time, and it felt bad then, but it feels worse now because then he had not won the popular vote, and now he's won the popular vote, and it feels intentional in a way that's like, I don't know.
I think there is. I mean, last time I think a lot of us, both sides of the pond, sort of turned around and said, "Well, it happened. It didn't win the popular vote, so let's blame the system a bit." There was hopes that with the that there might be ways around it, that he might not get certified and stuff like that. But this is fundamentally where democracy comes into play, because no matter the system, and we have slightly different systems both sides of the pond, but fundamentally it's about who wins more votes under the system that you've got. And last time, yes, it was kind of split. They won the election but lost the popular vote. This time, you're right. There is nobody can equivocate. He won both elements of that, and in many ways, there's been no messing about with this one. Everybody has known, or should have known, what he's like, because we've seen him before, and so that's what people have wanted. I guess the big question now is going to be, what did people think they were voting for? Because you get a lot of the pundits, a lot of the newscasters, they are all giving us their spin on what people voted for and why they voted the way they have. But I was sort of saying to you just before we came on air, we went through similar things. The biggest one of this will be Brexit. Was Brexit when we left the European Union here in the UK, and you talk to people about why they did it, and I think more of these reasons came out maybe 12, 18 months afterwards, when a lot of people just said the current system wasn't working for us, and that was the alternative. So we didn't want to vote for the status quo. We wanted to vote for change. So they weren't necessarily voting for Brexit per se, but they would just say, well, this system isn't working, so show me something else. And perhaps that's maybe what you've had over there as well, is that because there's been the rise in inflation, the people's pockets have been hit pretty hard, and there's lots of discussion about why that was and whose fault that is. But fundamentally, they've gone, the current system, the current thinking isn't working for me. Let's vote for the guy who says he can do something different.
Yeah.
And the other bit that I struggle with is, and I know you do too, we consume a lot of politics.
Oh boy.
Most of my podcast listening is political based. A lot of my friends, we talk politics an awful lot. I follow a lot of what's going on, but we are not normal. That's not the first time that's been said about me. We are not normal in doing that. Most people will not know most of the messages that have gone on. Most people will not know the stuff that will be ingrained on our brains.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about perspective. It's all about, and goes back to what you're saying. This is true human factor stuff. If we were developing a persona or personas of what does the voting public look like in the USA right now, that would be very different to what it was 4 years ago, and then 8 years ago before that. It would be interesting to you can't do it now, but it would have been interesting to have done that exercise to develop some personas that represents the voting public.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting because there was a lot of confidence, myself included, leading up to it. Like, to the point where I was so confident that I was making some financial decisions that probably, anyway, that may or may not have made a couple bets.
Money on
so I lost money. But more importantly, I think the the thing about it is that you're right. There were a lot of indicators that would indicate a Harris win. Like the Seltzer poll has not
Mhm.
been off very much. Alan Lichtman, who his keys are kind of pseudosciency, but he's been correct about most things. The every other metric in terms of fundraising and ground game and enthusiasm and everything was there, and it feels so the results feel so different from reality. Uh, and maybe this is my like blue state bubble, which is weird also because we're one of the few blue states that have moved further left, and the rest of the country had like a rightward shift. And so the Washington primary is usually indicative of a national environment, and that actually wasn't the case this time because Washington drifted left, everyone else drifted right. And so it's there's a lot of things that were like usually used as key indicators that didn't actually pan out to what the electorate was like this time. And it's just really shocking. And right now is a really frustrating time here in the States, not only because obviously half of us didn't get what we wanted, but because the half that didn't get what they wanted are right now playing the blame game with, oh, they should have done this or they should have done that. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think given our situation, we did the best we could. Like there's nothing that could have gone better. I don't think. And so even when you have sort of this, you seem like you want to say something, but sure.
Let you finish your thought. I'll come back to this.
There are things that could have gone better, sure, but I think for what we were given, the hand we were dealt, like it went as smoothly as it possibly could. And so, it's just one of those things where it's like it feels bad because everything was pointing in one direction, and then, oh right, reality hits. So, all right, go ahead and speak your piece.
Well, I guess that there's 2 points really. One is we have a notion over here. So when we're doing political polling or door knocking, effectively, we have this notion of what we call a shy Tory, a shy Conservative, which is the type of person who, because when you're polling, they want to look like they're going with the popular vote, they will tell you that they're voting for the left-leaning candidate because they want to come across as being more concerning, more caring. But when you get in that voting booth, or maybe before that, but your mind goes very personal, and you want to be that successful, personally successful thing that you see, which is normally that right-leaning, so got that conservative person. So there is an awful, and I think you've had a lot of that over there, where a lot of people have said to the pollsters and said to the people who knocked on doors, said to the people who've done the focus groups, etc. Yes, I'm voting left. When they've got into the voting booth, they've voted right, because of that personal perception. Because it's an interesting thing that you'd sort of think that people would vote for what makes us all better, but they don't. They vote for what they want to be, and they think that that works for them. And we can't knock that. That's one of them things. In terms of did everything go well, I think from the point that Harris was nominated, I'd absolutely agree that she and her team played the game that was on the field to the best of their ability. However, before that, there should have been decisive decisions made way before that point.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
The game was lost well before then. And looking back at it, hindsight's always 2020, isn't it? And I know that you can easily argue the reasons and, also give reasoning about why we were left to where we were left. So I think it is, I do talk about it in a we perspective, not a you, because as much as it is the election of your leader, it is that leader of the free world.
I have the global impact, which sorry,
it has a global impact. And though I find it quite somewhat ironic now talking about the leader of the free world with all the stuff that's been said that's going to happen, not so free anymore. Yeah. Going back to your point about we as human factors people need to be inclusive for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
So,
what we're going to do with the show tonight? Let's bring
well,
ourselves back to some fun stuff.
let's just close that off with remember why we're doing the work that we're doing. We, it is a firm reminder of why we are working on the things that we want to work on. It really is sort of my way of pushing through a lot of this and to focus on the things that we can control versus the things that we can't control. If we can make somebody's life better by working on this stuff, then we've done our job and we've made the world better for that person. And again, like, this is stuff that we have control over versus stuff that we don't have control over. But yes, let's get into what we're talking about tonight. So last time you had sort of unceremoniously left us because you were not feeling well.
Yeah,
And
I got bored. I've got to be honest.
okay,
I just
all right.
no. It was really weird.
This guy.
I was sort of sat here and it's suddenly just like in loads of pain, and I was like, it's all right. I'll struggle through this. It'll not be a problem. It'll be fine. It'll pass. And then it just didn't, and I was like, no. I started to go cold and shit, and I was like, you know what? So I was private chatting you, going, I'm not sure if I can do this. And then I was like, actually, I'm really sure I can't do this. So thank you for bailing out and for bailing me out, and for everybody who joined in to make the show happen anyway.
Yeah, that was kind of fun. So we actually built a Human Factors GPT that's loaded up with a bunch of Human Factors Cast GPT that's loaded up with a bunch of standards and reference material, which is super cool. If you haven't checked it out yet, humanfactorscast.media/GPT. And that'll get you there, and you can sort of interact with it there. But before then, we were kind of preparing for a show on some topics, and I can remind us of these topics. And if we want to change these, we can. But we had let's see here. We had humanoid robots in the news last time we had talked. There was sort of Boston Dynamics and Toyota, and then the whole Tesla bot thing, which I don't know if we want to talk about that right now.
No, we can talk about that. That's, in fact, no, I think we should talk about that because of some of the things that came out afterwards.
Yeah, and then we have a couple of other news stories in here that are kind of interesting. We have people sympathizing with bullied AI bots. We have people hate stories they think were written by AI, even if they were written by people. So that's kind of funny too. And then the Axiom spacesuit, which we have a personal connection to here at the Human Factors Cast show, which would be kind of fun. I think we should absolutely talk about that one. And then Apple Vision Pro, that got canceled too last time. So I don't know what kind of Human Factors news is out there. I haven't really been keeping tabs of it so much as some other news out there. So if you've heard anything and want us to chat about it tonight on the show, drop it in the chat. And you know what, just chat us where you're listening from or watching from live. We always love hearing from you. If you'd like to be a live caller too, you can always scan that little code right up here in the corner that will get you on the show. You just leave us a little private chat once you get in here with what you want to talk about. We'll find a way to weave you into the conversation. Let us know if you want to be on camera or off camera. We can just pull in your voice. That's possible. Yeah, I think we have plenty to talk about.
I think we do. Just looking through. Yes, I mean, definitely the Boston Dynamic. Always love a Boston Dynamic story because I think what they do is really cool. So we can play a bit with that. The Apple Vision stuff, absolutely. I mean, that's a short discussion, but are we surprised? But actually, there's a wider discussion to be had around that, around the usefulness of headsets in general. Because I think we should talk about how much we use our own and whether we do. Which again could be quite a short discussion. It came from. Are we happy to go with them? It came from still.
Oh, let's see. What are the it came froms this time? I think those are okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, because I need to read that because that the coupled with article for the first one is one that Amanda pulled up for me, which is why.
Oh, yeah.
It's really really interesting. So I think there's both. I need to quickly refresh myself on the first article.
Yeah, I need to look at them too. But I think they are good. So really some overlap here between ADHD and human factors engineering, and why they're a good fit for each other. And yeah.
Yeah, and then the next one, HF and UX again. That's quite cool. But I remember it's quite ironic because when that article first came up, I commented directly on the article, because that's what I do.
Yeah. And then we kind of did this one last time, so we can knock that one out.
We do. So interesting thing. So if you're not going to talk about it, with that GPT, I like what it does now because it's a very thing around usability and that sort of stuff, and it's not in principle it's not dissimilar to because I made a human factors integration manager or stateside human systems integration manager to help people do HFI or HSI.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't it be quite cool to actually create a GPT based on the podcast itself and sort of the personalities to see if somebody was going to do that, if they would ask the question whether he could answer from our perspectives or from the perspectives of the podcast. That could be quite. It'd either be really interesting or really boring.
I've thought about that. Yeah, it's like, what if you got two GPTs to talk to each other? One coded as Barry, one coded as Nick, and
cool.
and then you do some text to speech on it.
That's it. We never need wake up again.
Yeah, we just. I mean, there you go. Just throw it out there. Okay, so I think. Yeah, those. Oh, excuse me.
Don't you do that? I'm gonna go. See, look what you say.
You know what? That is a yawn snipe from halfway across the world, Barry. Check that out.
That's true. That's influence. That is.
Can you believe that? That's just think about how kind of amazing that is. That human psychology transcends distance. Like, isn't that crazy? I might be like tripping out here, but like that's kind of cool. I got you to yawn because I yawned.
How many thousands of miles?
Yeah, halfway across the world.
Well, I hope you feel pleased with yourself.
And who knows how many other people I got watching to yawn too. Sorry. All right. Yeah.
Well, how amusing would it be if, say, because Mateo's out in Australia, if he was watching at the same time and did it, we'd be like circumnavigating the globe.
It would be, yeah. I would have yawned in both directions.
It's true. So
I'm curious. I haven't really done. Has there been any like super big human factors news that I feel like we should bring in here? I feel like
there must be some. Oh wow, what's wrong with my microphone? There we go. It's back again. Didn't sound right. Somebody posted something in the IEA group that I thought was interesting the other day.
Yeah, I was looking through groups, and if anyone knows a better way of like searching through LinkedIn groups, I have. I would love to just like see, because I have all the individual groups, but I'd like to just get a feed of groups. That's not my personal feed, if that makes sense.
which is and I don't know how best to do that.
I don't either. There's not a good way to do that. Yeah, because it's like everything's group based, and it's like sort by. I don't know.
HFES is doing a special issue for lessons learned from COVID-19 and other natural disasters. Submission deadline 31st of January 2025. I still don't think we've learned all the lessons from COVID yet. Just saying.
Oh, have we not?
I don't think so.
My throat hurts. Oh. No, I think this is enough. Okay. Let me ask you, are you going to be ready to go in 4 minutes?
Ironically, my computer has just come up and said it needs to do a restart, but I'm like, no, let's not do that right now. Yes, I will be.
Okay. I feel like I'm. Nope, not gonna happen again. I feel like I'm really underprepared, but we're gonna wing it and go with it, and hopefully it'll be fine.
I'm sure it will be. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? If we just, what we should do is ask everybody to vote on the stories that they know, because then we'll get the wrong stories. No, the way that, particularly if it's an audience.
Let's play it by ear. We'll at least talk about the humanoid robots. We'll at least talk about the spacesuit, and we'll go from there. Anything else is gravy.
Yeah. In fact, I need to put the spacesuit one.
I need to take that out. 1202 episode plug.
Oh yeah, I've got a new episode. I remember.
And then we can also fill for time with some of these that came from. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think we are pretty good.
All right, I'm going to leave this up. If anyone wants to do this, ruin our show. Actually, no. You know what? I'm going to put something up different. Hold on.
Ooh.
We did this last time. But how about this? If you would like to give us direct feedback on our show notes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wait. Yeah, here you go. You can leave direct feedback on our show notes. You can't mess with them, but anyone can comment on them. So if you want to leave a comment while we're doing this live, you might see your comment make its way into the show. How about that?
Come and mess. Well, like I said, we can't mess with the notes, but come tell us what you think about the things we're going to say, or more pertinently, things that we should be saying that we're not saying.
Yeah, or spam it with profanity, and we'll try not to laugh our way through.
Yeah, true. If you can get us, take that as a mission. If you can get us to laugh whilst we're doing our stuff, and you're going to be able to almost prove that it was as a directly caused by what it is that you put into the comments. And if you manage that, we will hold our hands up and admit that that's absolutely fine. But yeah, basically come and spam the notes.
Spam the notes. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, make us laugh. All right, then I guess we'll go ahead and roll the thing, and we'll be right back. Yeah, Barry, you good?
I guess so. Let's do it.
All right, roll the thing.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Human Factors Cast. This is episode 305. We're recording this live on November 14th, 2024. Nothing big happened in the last couple weeks here. I'm your host, Nick Rome, joined today by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Hello, and I promise I'm going to try and stay for the entire episode this time.
Okay, yes, and we're going to stay focused on the
We are.
topics tonight. We do have an awesome show for you lined up. We have some cool stuff to talk about, including humanoid robots in the news again. We have some making waves here, and we're going to talk about Axiom's new spacesuit that's been causing quite a ruckus on the interwebs. We also have a couple of other stories that we might sprinkle in and out of there as it seems fit, but first, say some programming notes or community updates. We've been taking the last couple weeks off, as you can imagine. From my perspective here in the States, I didn't think it was appropriate that I sat here on the show last week and tried to pretend like nothing happened. From my perspective, as a fairly left-leaning dude, so we're back, and just we kind of talked a little bit about this during the pre-show, but I'll kind of step on my soapbox here. It's not the result that I'm wanted. And I think many of us are feeling the same way. And just a quick reminder that, to kind of focus your efforts on what you can control. Us here in Human Factors, I kind of said during the pre-show that Human Factors is not neutral. This is something that we work on in our day-to-day, and it's focused on the humans at the end of this thing. Focus on what you can control, and if we make somebody's lives better through our work as Human Factors engineers, Human Factors professionals, then we're making the world a better place. So let's push on, keep forward. But I'm not the only one here. We have an international perspective with us, Barry. I am curious as to what's going on over at 1202. Did you have a regularly scheduled episode last week?
We did have a regularly scheduled episode, and it was not distracted by the events of what was going on. So I interviewed Rosie Kane, and she's the cluster manager for an organization called Space Wales. And really, they exist to bring those organizations and companies within Wales that have an interest in the space industry together to be able to work together and deliver the requirements from the Welsh government, so the Welsh space strategy. And it was really fascinating because I'll be honest, I kind of dropped her in it a little bit, because one of my criticisms is that here in the UK that there isn't that much going on in terms of ergonomics and human factors within our space sector, largely because it's still quite relatively immature. And basically, a lot of people don't think that human factors need to be involved because it's satellites and stuff. And so one of the questions I dropped in was, what do you think the role is of ergonomics and human factors within Space Wales? And she came out with some fantastic answers. And so I suggest you go over and have a listen to see yourself, to see whether she held up her side of the answer, which I think she did brilliantly. But also you listen to her career story, and she's so dedicated. She was influenced really, really early on. I think she's one of the few people I've met who've had that goal and actually went and just kept following it, delivering it through to what she's doing now. So yeah, thoroughly well worth a listen, I believe. But then I'd say that because it's my stuff.
I have to say my level of excitement over the course of you describing that went all over the place, because when you said Space Wales, I was like, oh, Purgill, Star Wars. If you know, you know. And then you're like, oh, but we talked to somebody, Wales, space industry. Okay. But then as you were talking about it, it got me interested again. So I'm going to have to check that out. If you know about Purgills, you know. All right. So we should get into the news, I think. Why don't we do it?
Let's do that.
That's right. It's about that time again where we dust off the shelves, pull out what's going on in the world of human factors. Barry, we have a couple stories up this week. What's going on?
So, yeah, the first one we're going to talk about is one of my favorite companies that I like to watch what they're doing, which is Boston Dynamics. This time, they have teamed up with Toyota Research Institute and to create what they're calling the ultimate humanoid robot. So everyone's seen Boston Dynamic robots do their thing. You see them do a lot of failure and the way that they learn, and then when they go and succeed, and the way that they succeed, you often find out about because a lot of people are trying to call them videos out for being fake, but they then release the videos of how they got there, and so that's brilliant. But they're bringing that and teaming it with Toyota Research Institute, or TRI, their large behavior models, or LBMs. So, what's an LBM? I'd never heard of it before reading this story. It's a large, it's similar in approach to a large language model, ChatGPT, etc., but for robot behavior. And so the idea is that you have all of that learning. It speeds up the learning process for robots. When you're looking at the skills of dexterity, and really what they're suggesting is that this will change the way that robots are taught and how, basically make them useful way quicker and therefore commercially viable. So, Nick, do you think this is good news that we can have humanoid robots quicker, and to your house really quickly? Do you want a humanoid robot in your life doing the stuff that you need done?
Yeah. I frequently joke with my wife that we're gonna have a robot in our kitchen doing dishes every night, whether she wants that or not, because it just makes life easier. But I mean, it is an interesting story, and I think we can actually expand this beyond the Boston Dynamics and Toyota story to include perhaps even another one that was in the news too, which was the Tesla event, which I think was I mean, U.S. politics aside, and who's in charge of that company, I think we try to stick away from that. But that event too also had sort of this unveiling of their robot as well, and it's interesting to see this sort of trend towards needing a humanoid robot occupying your own personal space.
Mhm.
Um, it there's a there's a lot of interesting things that we could pull apart from this in terms of what it means to have um a robot servant in your home, and whether or not, like, there's I'm going to say this, but there's like some kids today who are like, what are some things that you'll look back on and people will think that your ways are antiquated based on the ways that people think about other generations. And it's like, well, we not think that robots have rights or something like that. And so it's when you have a robot in the home, are you treating them as a thing, or as a person, or do robots have personhood? And I think we're beyond that question right now. But even my initial thought is that yes, I want something like this in my home, uh, if only to make life a little bit easier. But Barry, I am curious on sort of your perspective on this. Are you anticipating a new addition to your household when these become widely available, or are you a never robot in the home person?
I don't see. My gut reaction would have been, yeah, buy me three. I just, let's have one in the kitchen, one in the living room, sorting out, bringing these snacks and things like that. But then there is an element there of, I do wonder, why do they have to be humanoid? Why are we so set out to have humanoid robots as opposed to maybe robots that are more functional? So all the robots that we have now in factories and things like that are built around the function that they deliver. The Boston Dynamics robots seem to be focusing on delivering human-like and dog-like capability. If you've seen the dog version of their robot, and seeing one of them I was going to say in the flesh, but in the metal, was a really interesting experience a couple of months ago. Why do we need them to be humanoid? Is that simply a research challenge or a manufacturing challenge to sort of show that we can do, that we can develop this type of robot, and in this case, then actually get it to learn really quickly, or is it just showing off?
I'll tell you exactly why. You want
Go
to
on
know
then.
why?
I do
It's
know. I
be-
do know why. So
it's
ask the question.
it's part marketing
Yeah.
and part use case. So
Mhm.
you have specialized robots in the home already. You have Roombas that are vacuuming your floors. You have dishwashers that are automated systems that wash your dishes that don't necessarily take the thing in and out. They perform a function, but you have automated things within your house. And the marketing piece of this is, oh, you can give it a personality. You can give it these humanoid like characteristics, but then also the imagination piece is that anything that you can do as a human, you can imagine this thing doing. So
Yeah.
whether you're training it to unload the dishes from the dishwasher and put them back away, or vacuum your floor with an actual vacuum cleaner instead of a robot vacuum, you can imagine that any one of these things can be adapted towards a humanoid form because they were built for humanoids to begin with. And so I think that is much easier to market from that perspective of like, hey, if I can do this, I can train this thing to do it, and then I won't need to do it. I can get this thing to clean up trash off the floor. I can, I can get it to clean the cat litter box every week or something because it's just a simple process of doing the thing. I can have it unload the groceries from the car and bring them in. So you think about those types of things, it's much easier to make that close that gap from what a human can do to what this robot can do. What can't it do? Well,
Mhm.
anything that a human can't is probably at the limits of what that thing can do. And there's probably limits that it can't do that a human can, but it's much easier to imagine what you can do with that. So that's the reason why.
No, I think it's right. I think it's interesting to see how basically there does seem to be this bit of a race on now, doesn't there? You mentioned the Tesla robot, and I think that was quite interesting because obviously there was the now I don't know whether it was proven because I never saw the end of the story, but there was the allegation made, I believe, that the Tesla robot was there and it was having a conversation with somebody, but actually, the voice of the Tesla robot was not the robot's voice. It was voiced in from somewhat a third party who was watching or listening to it. And is that just them trying to then do what you've just said, sort of get that one step ahead, which is interesting. And the this battle, if it's a battle between Tesla and Boston Dynamics, going forward will only benefit science in the same way that Apple and IBM went head to head, and it was because of the stuff that Apple and Microsoft were doing. The Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were so using each other to push hard on what they were doing that if they didn't have the competition, they wouldn't have developed in the way. Maybe that's what we're seeing here. Um, I had a bit of a random thought with this as well. What size do you make the robots? Do we make them all? So if you're making a humanoid robot, do you make them all the same size? So
Mm,
every robot. I mean, if we know by what we do anthropometrically, humans come in all shapes and sizes, and that is part of the fun of what we do. So do we make robots in the humanoid robots all the same, or do we make them all different? Um, yeah, what would you do?
uh, yeah, and then the follow-on question to that, if if robots eventually will have rights, and their size impacts your perception of them, then are smaller robots like children?
Hmm. Or
So
is there a dominant submissive piece here where actually you create smaller robots because you feel like you can order them around, tell them what to do?
right,
And so if you get sized up wrong for your robot, do you size your robot to the human
to
to
the
make
human.
sure that there is a hierarchy in place? This has suddenly gone to a place I wasn't expecting.
My
Um,
well, so look, like there's some good question, there's some good merit to this question. And let's break it down because I think for me, the immediate answer that I came up with was the anthropometric middle average. You get the anthropometric average of humans. And that would get at sort of that first point that I made around being able to use or do anything that humans are meant to do or use around the home or in the office space. You can imagine these being used for work or something along those lines. And so you might actually have a scenario where, like, my wife is short. My wife is 5 foot, and so, like, she has trouble reaching things up high. But if you have the anthropometric middle, she might want a larger robot to help her assist with her getting things up high. And vice versa. You might have like a smaller robot. You might not actually be able to fit inside a chimney to clean it, but you can send a robot in there that's tiny.
Mhm.
So there's absolutely use cases for every size, but I'd imagine the gut answer here of anthropometric middle would allow for more use cases and more adaptability to the various tasks that somebody might want to use one of these for, given that most things designed for humans could be used by this thing then.
So this does then bring out. So there's a lot of work, a lot of research work going on at the moment around this idea of human machine teaming. And however you dress it up, there's a lot of stuff that is talking around around trust, around how you cooperate with robots, no matter what the shape. But a lot of the stuff I've been looking at has been focusing on humanoid robots in this space. And one of the interesting use cases somebody gave me. So we've been looking at this from like ships and all this sort of stuff. But then with a lot of people working from home, if you suddenly decided that, or somebody said, I need you in the office tomorrow, and you're like, nah, I want to be sat at home. Could you send your humanoid robot, who is your co-partner now? So you have a co-partner in the office, that is your humanoid robot. Could you send them to the meeting in your place, given that they probably have all the data that you have, or access to all of that data? It probably will, if by this point have been able to work out how you think and how you make decisions, therefore could probably make decisions or reference back to you as and when needed. Do you ever need to leave your home office ever again? You can just send your humanoid robot out to have meetings with other people's humanoid robots. Jobs are good.
That's fascinating, because when I said workplace, I was imagining like these service roles, right? Like bringing a drink to a table, or grabbing papers from the printer around the office, or like going around as a waiter in the office to make sure that all your employees are sort of taken care of, or some of the like janitorial duties around an office, something that you could potentially um pay an upfront cost for a robot like this to sort of cover that. But you're taking it to the next level, where it's almost like a telepresence thing, where this robot would then act on your behalf, or be an avatar for you in the physical space, such that you could stay at home, have access to all of your data and everything, and then sort of in the physical environment still allow for that interaction. And that's fascinating, and that's not where my brain went. And to answer your question, I don't know. And that might be further out down the line. I can very much see the sort of manual labor things being taken care of first. But that's interesting, because you think about sort of this cognitive load that we're all carrying, and if we can offset some of that to this robot, this humanoid robot, um, I think that can absolutely have an impact on the human operator at some point, because you sort of start to think about things that are overhead tasking for you, that this robot could almost handle autonomously. Like,
Mhm.
oh, hey, I gotta go get myself some water. You could just send it to go get yourself some water, so that way you're hydrated. And when it notices your thing is empty, then you just send it off, or it just goes and gets you more, or it prepares you food, and so you don't have to think about that stuff, or even to the extent of like taking notes or note taking during a meeting, if it's permitted, to where you could almost say like, what did they say there, and then it could intuit based on what you were saying, that, oh, you're talking about so and so said this, and play back a recording immediately. And so that cognitive load then is reduced. And so I think all these things together, I don't know about the telepresence thing necessarily. I think that could be an aspect of it, but I think definitely we're going to start seeing, hopefully, I don't know, um, sort of these we can focus our brain power on other cognitively demanding tasks, and some of these like um keeping up to date with everything is going to be ancillary, secondary, whatever you want to call it, to the point where we're not worried about that stuff.
Yeah, I think both is true, to be honest. I think, and it goes back to how are we going to best utilize robots in the future and almost any sort of machine, because it goes back to this: how do we create the best team that we have? So you can imagine, so one of the ideas, rather than telepresence, going one step forward to teleexistence, and that's the idea that you go into some sort of suit and inhabit this robot body. So you'd want a humanoid robot, but you could get all the feedback, so it could go into areas that you cannot. So it could be, too hot, too cold. It could be another world, where you do this sort of stuff. But equally, you can then have that robot acting on your behalf in these inhospitable areas, and that is real use cases that are being played with now. So there is a bit of that, but then you go back to, yes, how do we use these, and is it right? Actually, going back to this
Ethical question.
ethical question, is it right that we just use them to clean up after us? Is once we get, I mean, that's what we use. I mean, you brought out the Roomba earlier. That's why we have automated grass cutting, automated vacuuming, etc., etc. Is it because it's all about making our lives easier? We're going to get to a point where we are conversing and talking to these things like people. We go back to whichever episode it was where we had our online girlfriends with the chat bot, and you're talking to them almost like real people, to the point that you could suspend disbelief. At what point does that become wrong, or questionable at best? So I think we're probably a long way from that, but possibly not as far away as we think.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if we're as far away as we think, because like I said, I think there are some people, like, I think older generations, of course, they're robots, whatever. They're just mechanical parts. But if you start thinking about sort of what it means to be human, and if you're interacting with a large language model, and if eventually we do reach AGI, um, then I think there's artificial general intelligence. I think there's definitely an argument to be made about what does it mean to be human, or what does it mean to think, and those questions will will then become much more problematic. But when you're talking to a large language model right now, hopefully we're not having those thoughts about it. Especially there's sort of an ancillary story that we'll bring in here about people hating stories that they think were written by AI, even if they were written by people. So we can talk a little bit about that in context with
Mhm.
using large language models. And in this context, it's behavioral models. And so if you see robots behaving like humans, are we still going to think the same way? I don't know. It's an aggregate. I do want to bring up this question from Heidi, though. Isn't one of most people enough? Do we really need doubles of us running around?
It's an interesting question, is it? Because do we want this humanoid robot just to be a clone of ourselves? I mean, my gut reaction would be no.
No.
It's got to be something that is complementary to you, that works with you. I mean, however, there's going to be other people who may want that whole idea of a robot clone of yourself to do whatever. And I guess there's there's all sorts of people out there, aren't there? So yeah, I don't think we'll get to the point where you'll have doubles in that respect, but I think there'll definitely be some, because the broad range of people we've got. I guess that also lends itself to the question: we talk about a humanoid robot, and we mentioned earlier about how would you size it? Would you treat it as average? But actually, is there a thing there? Almost going back to what you said, actually, you could create a shorter robot, but with longer arms for doing certain tasks. Could you give it longer legs so it'd actually be more efficient in walking, etc., etc.? Or could it change its limbs on will, depending on being task dependent? Or you'd almost be a Swiss Army knife of
Mhm.
humanoid robots to be task specific. Or is that the point about having a humanoid one? Is the fact that we don't do that sort of thing, and the humanoid form is good enough to do most tasks?
Yeah, I think. Well, I think there's certainly some augments, right? How we think about a cell phone as an augmentation of our own cognitive abilities. We can offload some of that stuff to our phones as sort of a uh, an extension of ourselves. I think the robot might actually work the same way. And then literally in the literal sense of extending arms and limbs to complete tasks that may be made easier by having those options to lengthen or shorten the limbs to do it, right? So like I mentioned the example earlier of putting things away or retrieving things from somewhere higher up. You can imagine, like, the legs and arms extend to go up to get that thing, so they don't need to fetch a ladder. They just have it built in. They just reach up, grab the thing, pull it down, and then they're back to normal. That would be cool. I can very much see use and utility for those types of things, because I think you're right. The more ubiquitous we make them, the more they can actually do things that humans can't, and increase the utility there. I mentioned an ancillary story, and I think there's actually another one that actually makes more sense to talk about right now, since we're talking a little bit about ethics and everything. But there's a story here by Imperial College London, who did a study on humans and how they displayed sympathy towards they protected AI bots who were excluded from playtime. So we're really looking at bullying here of AI, and how there's at least these emerging human behavior traits that are happening when it comes to looking at AI and starting to protect AI and even the way that we interact with it. That I think is really fascinating here from an ethical perspective. We're starting to see it already. People don't like that ostracism, and it's extended even towards AI, where when we start to treat AI as outcasts, then we feel like we have to speak up and include them. And so will that then transfer to these home robots that we're talking about here? And I think maybe, I don't know. I'm thinking early on we'll have very much a situation where you have maybe one of these per household.
Mhm.
So to get at Heidi's double question, I don't see there being one per every human, but more like one per household. Really affluent folks might have multiple around the house doing multiple tasks, but I think, for most people, one should be enough. Most families, one should be enough. Uh, and will they be seen as part of the family? I don't know. These are all questions that are.
And almost like looking at that story around being bullied, or the AI bot being bullied. Will If you've done a task yourself, that has a certain amount of value. So you go and wash the dishes, say. So you turn around to your partner and say, "It's okay. You sit down. I'm going to go and wash the dishes." Does that have a different flex rather than you saying, "Go and sit down. You don't need to do them. The robot's going to do them." So does the value of the task go down because you're getting the humanoid robot to do it rather than you do something? So you bake a cake or create something nice. You create a nice meal. Um, that has a lot of love, affection that goes into you creating that meal, which is very different from you saying, "It's okay. I got the robot chef to create you a Michelin star level meal," because it can do that because it's just following the instructions. Um, so how will we perceive the value of being done? And that goes to that other story, um, that if people have written, if people think something has been done by an AI at the moment, so this story saying that if you read a story, if they think it was written by AI, people instinctively don't like it. They will pick fault in it, etc., etc. Um, but if they think it's been written on AI, they will hate it, even if it has been written by a person anyway. and so we automatically put a different value scale on it because we think it's been done by a machine in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I can imagine. I'd imagine it's the same thing that you might experience with like a story. Here's the other story that we were gonna pull into this was, people don't like stories that seem like it was written by AI, even if it was written by humans. And so will we start to see that again with behavioral types of things where, as you were describing, you have a robot create a Michelin style meal that lacks the, for lack of a better term, soul of what a human can put into a meal, because that missing ingredient would be love and care that is just absent with a robot. And so, would we start to notice it with these behavioral models? And I also wonder if that would make us a little bit more in tune with social cues. I really wonder about that thing, because you can imagine that there's like, if you think about these behavioral LBMs, is that what they're called? Large behavioral
Yeah.
models.
Yeah.
If you think about these LBMs, they're probably taking the average or the anticipated movements of the average response, right? And so you're looking at very much like the status quo, and so you might be able to tell when somebody's more excited because of the way that they're moving their hands or the way that they're moving their body, or when they're actually, depressed in the sense of moving slowly or hanging their head. Are you going to start to pick up more on these because it's outside of the average um, that these machines would exhibit in these LBMs, these large behavioral models, that then makes us a little bit better on communicating with humans? Is this going to make us better communicating with humans in the long run? I don't know.
Or is it? Yes, I mean, well, it's there's two, I guess, two perspectives on that. One, yes, because it would allow us to, if the humanoid robot was taking on these behavioral cues, and you could then work with that, and therefore you don't automatically do some of that too, especially if it could understand your behavioral cues. um there'd be more onus on you to do that. However, not everybody deals with behavioral cues in the same way. And we can talk about people with neurodiverse individuals who deal with social cues in very different ways and exhibit social cues in different ways, and that is part of the rich tapestry of human life. That's what makes cultures work. That's what makes us as a species work, because we're not all exactly the same. So how are we going? How are we going to deal with that? Is there going to be a point where if somebody is maybe got autistic traits or ADHD traits, who maybe don't pick up on social cues or react to social cues in the same way, are they going to be unable to use these robots if the robots are reacting to social stimuli and exhibiting behavioral cues? Likewise, if the robot is expecting to see behavioral cues from somebody who just doesn't exhibit them,
Mhm.
that's going to be a really interesting user interface to try and work with, to make them try to basically understand the breadth of inputs that you could have.
Yeah, especially when it comes to trust, because if a robot misreads what the human is doing, then that's gonna it'll misread the input, and some of that safety risk mitigation, some of those factors will play in there too. If it misreads your intent and moves out of the way when in fact it's moving into your way, it's doing the whole dance thing of like, I'm moving this way, and then it moves to correct, and then how will those types of interactions happen? I do want to make sure that we have some time to talk about this other story here. So while this is super fascinating, maybe we could talk a little bit more about the post show. Any other closing thoughts on the race to become the latest and greatest humanoid robot?
I look forward to seeing it. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how particularly that battle goes. But just to come back to the last point, we talked about behavioral interaction. One big difference between UK and US is in the UK we do sarcasm a lot. And Americans, you guys don't do sarcasm anywhere near as much as we do. So how would a robot get that? Yeah, good luck. What about you, Nick? Are you happy with it, with your robot that you got an order coming fairly soon?
Oh, I'm putting down as soon as I can. I'll order one of these the day it comes available. And yeah, we need a sarcasm mode because I want nothing better to have a sarcastic robot in my life that I could. Yeah. All right, what's what's the next story here, Barry?
So NASA's been laying out contracts to design their next spacesuit, particularly for the first moon landing. And in this case, the subtitle reads, "The astronauts will literally wear Prada." So NASA contractor Axiom Space has been put on contract to design the next spacesuit that's going to be used for the moon landings for the Artemis 3 missions. And this will be the first moon landing since Apollo 17 in 1972. So it's been a while since they've done this. So you want to look cool when you're going to go and do this. So they've got the Italian luxury brand Prada along for the journey to help develop this spacesuit. So if you want to see what it looks like, it's out there on futurism.com, which is where we're getting the story from tonight. So you can see that it looks, I mean, in some ways, it doesn't necessarily look dissimilar to what they've had in the past. You recognize it as a more of a NASA spacesuit than, say, a SpaceX spacesuit, but it's meant for different things. I think the interesting bit here is whilst it looks similar, the leaps in technology is supposed to be quite, well, they call it groundbreaking in the way that it's being developed. I mean, fundamentally, this is going to allow astronauts to go on spacewalks for 8 hours a day and be protected in what they're doing. It can do carbon dioxide scrubbing as it goes, so that's meant to be a brand new thing. And they're also doing this alongside the new vehicles that they're getting, they're developing for this. So yeah, we'll see what it looks like, and I think it looks quite exciting. It looks quite cool. And as you said, we've got friends of the podcast who actually had their hands on developing this stuff. So we've got skin in the game.
Yeah, we do. I mentioned this at the top, but we actually have a close connection to this. So, Katie, if you're familiar with Katie, she has been working in the lab with us since, oh geez, 2000. So she's 2020. Wow, 2000 would be a long time. 2020. And so she's been with us for a while, and she actually had personal involvement on this. I think she was in an internship working on this very project. So we have a very close relationship to this this project. So there's some really cool things here. You know, you mentioned it looks cool, but really what we're looking at here is even deeper than that, because you look cool, but then also I think there's some increased mobility here that they're talking about in terms of being able to move around more freely. And so, you know, you have the human factors considerations built into the spacesuit beyond just looking cool. The whole thing is, you know, kind of focused around Prada. Sure, fine, but I mean, you know, like really, we're looking at you know, being able to operate in the environment longer. We're looking at the mobility piece of it. There's a ton of safety considerations that went into this suit in terms of making sure that that there's safety during these lunar missions. I think there's you know, there's a footnote here about using specialized tools, and so that kind of gets at the mobility again, not just, you know, range of motion, but also within you know, with being able to do fine motor movements of the hands and being able to use those tools. And if you think about some of these uh, evolutions here within the spacesuit, I think it's one thing to be functional, but then like there's this whole other psychological component of being an astronaut that I think I don't know, when I think astronaut, I think cool. And so you want to have that, like, you want to have the suit match the cool aspect of being an astronaut. And so now you can be out in space and look cool doing it. So I think, I just think it's so cool.
It's interesting. One of the comments that I saw, and the reason I mentioned the SpaceX stuff, because obviously they developed their suit as well, and they said, "Oh, the SpaceX suit looks a lot easier to use. It looks like it's a lot more suited to the body, but they were developed for very different things."
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think a lot of people don't really understand is the SpaceX suit that they've got at the moment is made to allow people just to use Dragon and use that platform. Whereas this is going to be for moonwalking. This is going to be going out to go and actually do work in harsh terrains, conduct scientific experiments, and whatever else they do out there. I mean, for me, when I see things like this, I immediately look at two things. That's the hands and then the articulation at the joints. And you compare this to what, we go back to the early moon missions, and the suits that they were wearing there, super clunky, really, really hard thing. And you've got them iconic images of them sort of bouncing on the lunar surface. Whereas you can look at this and see that they've really thought about the articulation in the knees. There's folds in the material to allow the suit to give as you bend your knees, as you bend your elbows. But also there's still lots of protection there. You can tell that this is that on the arms, it's quite bulky. So there's clearly lots of fibers in there to provide insulation, to provide protection. But what they've done this time, it's just going from the graphics, from the pictures, that the actual wrist, the gloves themselves go into, they don't directly attach, they go inside the sleeve. So you've actually got greater range of motion there to work with. So actually focusing on allowing the operator, the astronaut, to do the job that it is that they want to do, and presumably allow a wide range of roles to be undertaken here as well. So yeah, I think it looks cool, but it also looks functional. So I can't wait to see this thing actually being tested or further tested next year, and see where it gets to.
Yeah, here's a cool point that I had missed, excuse me, on my initial read through. But they're designing this to be to fit astronauts from the 1st to the 99th percentile, which is sort of making sure that it can fit everybody, right? So it's this inclusive design, which, again, kind of talking about at the top of the show, really I think is awesome, because it's now saying, instead of just a certain body type, anyone can be an astronaut, which is just cool. Regardless of gender, or whatever you look like. I think this is super rad that they're designing for this wide of a percentile.
Do you think that's actually possible? Because I mean, are they talking about first to 95th percentile? Was it first to 95th or first to 99?
99th.
So is that of the general population or of their astronaut as in their
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know.
Because if it's of the general population, that's a shout. That's a one heck of a requirement. And if I was the requirements manager for that, I'd be, really, are we going to do that? But again, with the way that
sorry, your requirements manager cosplay was perfect in that moment.
So, but when you look at it, you can see how some of these bits may be modular. So the torso section looks like it's got almost an upper jacket and a lower. Could it be sort of almost like a dungaree type thing under there? And so does that allow for greater variation in torso length? And the same could be said for potentially the arms and the legs as well. So maybe there is some interesting design elements in there that if only we had an expert
If
that
only.
knew something about it who could answer some of these questions, that would be fantastic. But it'd be interesting to know how what design decisions they've made in order to meet such a, quite frankly, outrageous requirement. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm quite a fan of that type of thing as a challenge, because you're absolutely right. If we can design for the broad audience, we absolutely should. I just don't know how well that's going to work for a particular mission. Yeah, no,
Yeah, I
I
do not know. That was on the HFES post regarding it. So
yeah.
and I'm looking at the source article now, and I'm not seeing anything about percentiles. So I'm not sure where that information is sourced from. Hopefully that is true, but maybe we can get some clarification on that.
So is this, so look at the suit as well? Is this now that blend of HF and UX? So one of the things that I've always said is around the, the UX brings the style, it brings the beauty to a product, rather than HF could be seen as a bit more functional. So is this bringing Prada in to help looking at the style of this, and in a similar to way, we keep referencing the SpaceX stuff, but they're the people who produced other spacesuits recently. Everybody sort of commented on how cool the SpaceX stuff looked as well. Is bringing the style now into this important? Because NASA has historically been known for maybe substance over style. Does this leap to style, is it important?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm sure they're sticking to some of the standards that uh, they need to.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know of any aesthetic standards that might influence this, other than make it look cool.
Make it look
Uh,
sexy.
yeah, I mean, there's it's interesting though, because I can very much see a sort of a requirement for making it look and feel awesome, such
Mhm.
that it's part of this propaganda machine of like, we need more people to grow up to want to be astronauts to drive that exploration space.
Yeah.
And so it's all marketing and advertising and propaganda from that perspective. And so I don't know. I just don't know.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I would almost love to be a fly on the wall when the design sprint was going on, and you've got um NASA human factors representatives in there with, they'll have the standards that they've developed and their best practice and all that sort of stuff, and then they'll have a designer from Prada in the same room going, what about making it red? What about having this stylistic look to make it
Mhm.
look cool on? Because you're absolutely right. One of the, and we need people to find this impressive. We need people to find to want to do this. And that was kind of exemplified on the Apollo 13, when you watch that, and they, before the incident happens, they highlight that they're doing some of the live streaming from the spacecraft itself. But when you see it down on in mission control, it's not being streamed because none of the networks wanted it. Space wasn't sexy anymore.
Mhm.
Um, and so when this goes up, it's not only got to function well, but it's got to look good doing it. So I'd have loved to be in the fly on the wall with that, with the two different worlds coming together, and to see, almost understand the influences that the Prada designers had into this and what they can lay claim to.
Yeah. And while we're doing social posts here, I'll just read Katie's post about working on this. Hey, I got to work on this over the summer. So exciting to see it getting over the finish line. Rocket ship, astronaut emoji. All right. I think we gotta end the stories there for tonight. So thank you to our friends over at IEEE Spectrum, The Byte, Science Daily for all of our news stories this week. If you want to follow along, we post the links to all the original articles under weekly roundups on our blog. Also join us on our Discord for more discussion on these stories and more. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to see what's going on in the human factors community right after this.
Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for all things human factors.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast Network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our monthly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and access to the full library of Human Factors Minute, a weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, that's right. Huge thank you, as always, to our patrons. You truly do keep the lights on over here and help support all of our endeavors. I don't know if you know this, but the patrons really help support a lot of things outside of just the weekly shows, but it also helps attendance at things like HFES and some of our ancillary coverage that we put out there into the ether. So thank you all for that coverage, or for that support. Truly helps us over here. All right. With that, let's get into this next part of the show we simply call...
It came from... It came from...
I got to do something with that clip. All right. It came from... This is the part of the show where we search all over the internet to bring you something that the human factors community is talking about. So we have one up this week from LinkedIn, and this is a particularly interesting piece. And this was posted, not ironically, but this was posted into the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors. You might be familiar with it. This post is by, is it Gary Guan? And writing why human factors and ADHD can be a good mix. You can tell we pulled this in October because it says October is Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder Awareness Month. So we're sharing the story of human factors specialist and CIEHF chartered member Charlie Turner on his journey to ADHD diagnosis and what it meant for him. ADHD is a condition that affects people's behavior. They can seem restless, may have trouble concentrating, and may act on impulse. But there are benefits too, such as having great attention to detail, having endless ideas, and being creative, all of which can help a career in human factors. Charlie says those of us with ADHD only find it hard to focus on things that we don't find exciting or interesting. If it's something we enjoy doing, we're all able to hyper-focus to an extraordinary degree. And then there's a link to the full story from Charlie there. And you, Barry, had also posted a sort of supplementary post in relation to that. Do you want to go over that one?
Yeah, so this was highlighted by a friend and colleague of mine, Kelly Davis, and she'd put a post out there saying, as somebody who's diagnosed as autistic at 46, the post completely resonates. People keep commenting about the increase of people suddenly having ADHD and ASD, and suggesting it's a social trend that somehow these conditions are cool or even temporary. Worst of all is people keep saying everyone's a bit autistic. I'm sorry, but they're not. We're human. We still act like humans. We still have traits that are supercharged and have impact on our lives, sometimes resulting in shocking statistics like the ones that are in the article below. More awareness and understanding is absolutely needed. And the preconceptions of ADHD and the naughty boy problem, well, or the result of bad parenting need to be broken. And then this led on to another comment by Amanda, my wife, around highlighting the differences in the way that the male and female ADHD is perceived and understood. So there's a lot of that the misdiagnosis or undiagnosis of ADHD is much further, much higher in women than it is in men at the moment. So, and that way, when you look at the the whole ADHD thing is way underdiagnosed anyway. To have that imbalance, as always seems to be the case between male and female as well, is still a huge thing. But I would just highlight that the original story, the Charlie Turner story, is in the Ergonomist magazine in the June edition, and so it came out in 2023, and so that is linked in that original story for the full process that Charlie went through to really getting to that idea about why he thought he should be diagnosed in the first place. And the interesting bit is that he did one of these things that you do online that sort of filter questions effectively, and when it was like, oh, maybe there is something there. Yeah, and interesting.
Yeah. I just want to echo the sentiment of like ADHD in human factor. I think it is really just a great mix. Not self-diagnosed. I I had a similar experience to Charlie where I had answered some of those questions like maybe you should or I had read some accounts
Mm.
from folks of like, I have ADHD and this is something that happened to me, and those types of accounts had encouraged me to go get my own diagnosis. And I think it's really interesting from the perspective of the overlap between ADHD and human factors, and really they are complementary.
Mhm.
Uh, I used to work in a building where I could work on a different thing every week. And especially in the podcast realm, we talk about different stories every week. So go and talk about, hey, it interests me this week. Let's talk about it then. And it's very much that self-serving, that self-serving rotation of new things that keep the dopamine hit coming, which is why
Mhm.
it's been sustainable for so long. But I think, beyond that, it also the superpower aspect of it really helps me do work as well. Sometimes I'll lock myself alone at night to focus on a task when I don't have the distractions. And when I get into that superpower mode, I can do a lot of really great things in a focused amount of time. Um, and it's just, it just feels like there's always something coming from, new information. Okay, rope that into how we do things, or, a new project, even if it's within the project that you're working on, there's a new thing to work on that thing. And so it's just a conveyor belt of never ending things to learn.
Absolutely. And I think what I quite like is the more that we talk about it, the more people will start at least reflecting, oh, maybe this is a bit of me, or maybe we should have the discussion, or this I should have the discussion with a loved one, or something like that. Because certainly working with our children, and understanding what their traits are, and then the fact that it's genetic, means that we've had conversations with ourselves, and then we've had conversations with our parents around,
Hmm.
you know have you maybe thought about the fact that it isn't new, it's just the fact well, it's just been around for a long time. And I think the what I find it's quite sad in a way, and that I recognize why the older generations are going, well, I had to put up with it, deal with it, crack on, because it's one of these things that, yes, they been undiagnosed for a long time, and it's not it didn't exist, it just we didn't know about it, we didn't know it was a thing, and now we understand about it, we can
Right.
leverage that better. But I also get the fact that they didn't have that opportunity. They didn't have that. So I think that their attitude of, look, we had to deal with it, so should you. I don't agree with it, but I definitely get it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And if you're curious about what some of those things were, feel free to reach out to me on Discord. I'm happy to walk through some of those things. I'm quite open about the process of how I found out. So if you're curious, let me know. Let's get into this. Any other final words on that, Barry?
No, that's good. I think, but just keep talking, be kind.
Keep talking, be kind. All right, let's just get into one more thing. There's no intro for this one. It's just where we talk about one more thing. Barry, what's your one more thing this week?
Well, I've been out for a while, so I'm going to go for two things. Firstly, is more of a formal announcement that I'm now on the IEA Communications and Public Relations Committee, which is not an easy thing to say. Very quickly, specifically, I'm responsible for refreshing and delivering the social media output. So, if you want something shared by the IEA on LinkedIn specifically, I'm kind of focusing on that at the moment as a growth area. Tag me in it, or tag in the IEA new LinkedIn page, and I will make sure that we share what you're doing. But the thing that I've had to learn over the past couple of weeks, I wouldn't necessarily go to the reasons why, but I've never been able to take pills. Never been able. So I always have to have the soluble paracetamol. I always have to have either dissolvable ibuprofen or crunch them with my teeth to swallow them down. It's got used to that. But because of some pills I'm not having to take, I have to take them whole, and I'm having to learn how to take pills. My children think it's hilarious, but I've just had, and you talk to the doctor and say, right, I can't take pills. They're like, oh, is it just psycho? Have you tried all the tricks? Yes, I've tried all the tricks on the internet. I know it's psychological. It's part of my job. I get why it is. It still doesn't mean that I can swallow these tablets. So I've had to put on my big boy pants and learn how to take pills. I still have to give myself a pat on the back every single day that I take these couple of pills that I need to take. One of them's quite small, that's fine. One of them is bigger, and I still get a rush of adrenaline every time I have to take this tablet.
What's the biggest pill you got? I'm trying to find my biggest pill right now. I think I have.
I know by most people's standards, these pills are small, but they. I have a flashback of when I choked on a pill years and years ago.
Oh yeah.
And so I have to physically do this whole thing. Yes, no, that's
all right. There you go. That's my pill. That's the size of my pill right there.
Yeah, no, I'm not taking that. That's just not
mouth for reference.
The fact that my kids can like sort of dry swallow pills, and you just like go, no, I have to have like a gallon of water per pill. Anyway, maybe in a few years I might be a bit more good and be able to take these things, but yeah.
You'll
Anyway.
get there. You'll get there. Hey, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. Take it. It can sometimes be a hard pill to swallow when you don't know how to do something and or can't do something, and you're just doing great. Wow, this is a whole inch. This is a whole inch big. I'm just now comparing this to
yeah. See, I would refuse to take that. I would just have to refuse. I couldn't do it. Anyway, enough mocking me and my inability to take pills. Nick, what's your one more thing?
Well, I have something really, really weird that I'd like to talk about, and the thing that's weird about it is that I have newly discovered a new team dynamic. And so I had this weird experience where I went to a conference in what was it, early September? You may have heard of it. It's HFES Aspire. And when I returned, my son had suddenly became much better at a game that we enjoy playing together. And so then he started exploring with playing online. And you get the sweaties online. You get people who are really good at the game online. And just for reference, this is Rocket League, right? So nothing super, like, you can get really sweaty in Rocket League, but it's cars pushing around a ball to play soccer. Okay. Mm-hmm. So he's gotten to the point now where he can play online against other people, and we win almost every time we play together. And this whole team dynamic is just so interesting to me because I'm explaining strategy to a 5-year-old where I'm saying, okay, so here's how we tackle it. You stay in the zone in front of me, so that way you can try to block it before it gets to me. And then if you miss it, I have a chance to hit it. And then if you hit it, then great, then you get the points. And so trying to explain to him how all this logic happens, is really interesting. And then we get into this zone where we're just performing well, and to the point where we won a tournament together, which is just
Cool.
it's fascinating.
Mhm.
And so team dynamics with a 5-year-old is just something that's completely different and fascinating. And now he doesn't want to play games at all, and he wants to do regular 5-year-old things. So it's just he probably has ADHD too, and he's just dropping one thing and moving to the next. But that's what I had for my one more thing. All right, and with that, I think that's it for today, everyone. If you like this episode and enjoy some of the discussion around Tesla bots, I'll encourage you to go listen to one of our previous episodes. I know we had a whole episode on Tesla bots that you can go check out. Comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week, or tag Barry in it so he can retweet it, repost it from the IEA LinkedIn account. For more in-depth discussion, you can always join us on our Discord community. Visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest Human Factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a few things you can do. One, wherever you're at right now, like the video, leave us a 5-star review, all that stuff. That helps. 2, more importantly, you can tell your friends about us. That really helps the show grow because your word is better than some strangers on the internet. And 3, if you have the financial means to, you want to help support the show, help us get better things to do better conference coverage, etc., consider supporting us on Patreon. We truly, truly appreciate those who support the show there. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. Mr. Barry Kirby, thank you for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about how to swallow pills?
I'm a terrible person to talk to about that, but you can come and mock me on social media, and you can find me on Facebook and on LinkedIn and various places like that. But if you want to listen a bit more about me chatting to other people in the Human Factors community and seeing what they're up to, then come and find me at 1202 The Human Factors Podcast at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Rome. You can find me on our Discord and across social media at Nick_Rome. Stay tuned for the post show, and thanks again for tuning in to Human Factors Cast. Until next time, it depends. Okay, let's get that post show music going.
Yay. We need music.
Yeah.
It's not a proper post show without music.
That's right. That's how I do it.
Cool.
Gotta get the vibe. Gotta let people know, hey, we're here. Hey, if you want to be a live caller in the post show, though, there's that for you.
Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I've had my first couple of meetings now in my new IEA role. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the it's really interesting because we've spoken before around human factors around the world and there's 2 massive growth areas at the moment for human factors, and that's in China and South America.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, why? What's driving it? But apparently the numbers are coming in at the moment, because when I did my first, so was it 2 conferences ago, and I give the introductory welcome to everybody, I was highlighting that all the numbers that had come out were showing that every single country was in decline. UK was about middling. It was sort of the numbers were level, but we were getting loads of people in, but loads of people leaving as well. So, let's highlight this and do something about it. IEA, you should do something about it. Whereas now it seems that there's lots of growth, particularly in China, for human factors, and I'm really keen to find out why.
Why is that?
Or what? Almost why wasn't it before, and why is it such a boon now? Because you'd expect it to have a large population, given the amount of software they produce, the amount of equipment and gadgets and wearables and things like that. You'd expect them to have a huge HF input, but they've never really bothered about it in the past. So what's been the tipping point? So I'm intrigued. And if anybody is watching, listening, who can give us some insight into that, please do come on and tell us, because I'd love to know more.
Yeah, I wonder. I wonder.
So yeah, it's it's quite nice. It's quite interesting being on a international committee.
Now, be honest, Barry. Do you repost every 1202 episode through the IEA account?
Not yet. I've already done one episode since I've done that, but there might be a bit of a throughput on there. So we'll see what happens. It's quite interesting because since the IEA first set up a group, so there is an IEA group out there. In fact, there's a number of IEA groups out there now for various reasons. But the main IEA group was a group there, and it was before LinkedIn had pages, so it was done about 2008, I think it was. Whereas now I'm like, nobody needs a page because the page is the outward looking piece and all that sort of stuff. And so it's interesting getting that growing in the way that it is, and trying to get people to recognize that the internal group is about sharing stuff. The external stuff is the focus on the world. So once we do that, then we're going to try and grow that to other platforms. So the next one I'm hitting is Instagram in particular.
Okay. Yeah.
So if there's anything, if people have visual things, pictures or cool things like that, then that are Instagrammable, then I'm keen to be sent it, and we can do stuff with it.
Oh, you just that's a big invitation for getting pictures of things you don't want.
It's true, but I have a very good filter.
Okay. Speaking of some cool things going on, I haven't really talked about this in a couple weeks, but I talked about this a little bit in sort of the post HFES roundup that we did, and a lot of what I've been doing lately has been kicking the tires, getting the dust off of this podcasting thing, getting back up. You had actually a conversation with somebody who reached out to you about the lab, and that has actually spun up recently too. And I only mention this in case anyone is interested in science communication, specifically within the human factors domain, and being able to effectively communicate in the human factors domain. We are getting back into seminal research, like actually developing papers for scientific journal articles. So if that's something that interests you and you want to get involved, please do reach out, because we are looking to spin some stuff up potentially early next year. And it actually turns out that we have resources available at a university, so we can actually get real participants and conduct real studies. We're a real boy. Look at that.
Wow.
So there's some really exciting things happening in the Human Factors Cast Digital Media Lab. Yeah, it's weird because it's like I'm getting everything spun back up, and then just a chance conversation turned into something way more, and it's like
Good.
yeah, it's crazy. We're going great. We're doing great.
It's interesting the way that these sort of things happen, isn't it? It's the little things. I mean, I've had a couple of meetings over the past couple of weeks that have just been started off as a random short email that somebody sent me saying, I was listening to your podcast. Thanks for doing it. And I was like, we started having an email conversation. I was like, actually, what you're doing is really, really cool. I'd love to come and chat to you about it. And we then had a meeting, and it might lead to some really interesting stuff. I recognize I'm talking about this in very vague terms because I need to.
Oh, I am too.
If it comes off, then that'll be great. But what you've also said has just reminded me that actually I've got about 2 weeks to finish off my papers for the next year's ergonomics conference, because the closing date for that is in the start of December. And I've got at least 2, if not 3 papers I'm trying to put together. Interestingly, and it's food for thought, is they're doing a special edition of the ergonomics journal partially to celebrate the CHS 75th anniversary. Maybe there is an opportunity there for us to do a journal article on communicating human factors by different means.
Yes, I think so.
We'd have to do it relatively quickly, but I'm sure we could spin something up.
Yeah, let's chat about that, because let's work async. And actually, Barry, if in the lab Discord, if you want to chat about it there's probably other folks interested in the lab that we could use as an additional resource for that. So let's get that rolling. And listeners like you, if you're interested too, reach out.
Come and play. Yes.
Come and play.
Many hands mean less work for us. Sorry, many hands make light work.
Less work for us.
I'm a big fan. It's called empowerment leadership.
You do the work. I'll just sign off on it.
Yes. It's No, we were talking the other day about me and Amanda were talking about next year, because this year has been one of those years that I'll be quite happy to see the back of on a number of fronts. And so next year, I sort of just dropped a thing in there, said I'd quite like to go and do a stateside visit. Don't know quite what we're going to do with that, because I'd like to go to Los Angeles and go and visit a home Rams game, just because I've got into this whole American football thing, and I'd like to go and see the thing for real. And then I was like, oh, wouldn't it be great if we could go to HFES around the same sort of time, so I'm mixing it with a bit of work. But I don't think next year's HFES is anywhere near LA, so I don't know how well that's going to work. It'd be quite nice just to go and do something a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, the HFES next year, I think, is in Chicago. Is that right?
Oh, I think you could be right, because I think we've talked about that at the end of the HFES live streaming stuff about where it was going to be, because I think it's already been really cold and windy.
Yeah, Chicago, Illinois. Yeah, that's right. All right. So
technically, it would be on the hub anyway, wouldn't it? So I don't think I could fly direct to LA. I don't know how that. Anyway, something to think about. We might end up doing next year.
It is always funny, like getting not funny, like haha, but like interesting when non-US citizens talk about how close things are in the United States. It's like, I mean, I know you understand that they're far away, but
even then, I don't think we don't have the same concept of distance. I mean, I'm now doing some work. Me and my team are doing some work, which is in the north of England, and so it's a 5.5 to 6 hour journey there every other week, and so that's where I've been this week. And I came back on Wednesday evening, and part of me is like going, "Oh, that's such a long journey to do," and it's near where my folks live, and so it is a journey we're quite used to. But there is an element of there that we sort of trying to go, oh, if it was American, we'd think that this would be like the equivalent of just going down to the store for some food.
Not quite. I mean, if you're talking like 5 or 6 hours, if you think like 5 or 6 hours, think about the difference between you're with no traffic, you're probably looking at like Los Angeles to San Francisco within California. That's probably what you're looking at, right? Maybe up and down one of the Northwest states. You might be able to span a couple of states on the East Coast.
But I think you guys are much more willing to spend like commuting for work. I think you're more willing to do a longer commute than we generally are for everyday work. Because from what I understand, commuting an hour would not be an abnormal thing for going to work. So
no, I used to commute an hour and a half each way each day.
Yeah, so I did that for a bit, and it nearly killed me. So I was like, no, not so much. I found myself like falling asleep.
No, it was terrible. It was terrible. I'm making up for it now. I work remote fully, and so that's nice.
But yeah, so hopefully we, if my plans come together, then we might be stateside. And so if we do that, we're going to have to try and do some sort of meetup.
Yes, absolutely.
But yes, I'm determined to try and have a holiday next year.
Yes.
Which would be
do come to Chicago. Do come to HFES. That would be a good fun. Good fun.
It's yeah, I think it would be.
Especially because then I wouldn't have to worry about any of the live streaming stuff remotely. I could just do it all there.
That's also true. That means I'd have to bring like 2 suitcases, one just full of gear. And then
I might be able to handle you on the gear stuff. It might be okay.
So yes, but we shall see. Who knows what's going to happen? Because in theory, I lose a lot of my responsibilities in April.
In theory, yeah, that's right.
Because it suddenly dawned on me that I will be coming off the executive and the council, unless I decide to restand, which for council again. But given that I've now been on it for 6-7 years, something like that, I think it's probably time for a bit of a break, because then I'll find something else to get involved. I thought it was quite, again, with this IEA thing, it was quite amusing because I was like, I was saying to Amanda, I'll be coming off the executive because they'll have had enough of me by then. I'll probably come off council at the same time because they've had enough of me by then. So I'll have no responsibilities for a bit. And and Amanda was like, no, that's not what you do. You'll pick up something. But I bet you pick up something even before you've left doing this thing. And I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Not going to do that. The next week, I'm then on the IEA committee. And he's like, you know what you're saying about me picking up stuff? Well, there you go. So maybe that's just the type of person I am. Do you get numbers on how many people have used your the ChatGPT thing? I don't think I get any with mine.
No, I do not. Well, actually, hold on. Let me take a look. See. My GPTs. Oh, I can see how many chats. I can see how many chats people have with it, I guess.
Are you okay?
That's definitely not just my chats. Yeah, it says 20 plus, so people have tried it. 20 plus conversations. Because I've not had 20 conversations with this thing.
No, mine's hidden, so it's not publicly available.
If everyone could just go in and rate this thing 5 stars, that'd be great. Hang on. Can I here, I'll put the link to it in chat.
Oh. I just tried to rate it and it didn't like it.
There you go. There's the link. You should be able to. Here, I'll put it right here too. Should be able to get to that.
It won't let me rate it. That's weird.
That is weird. Is it not on the store? I wonder. Hang on.
Well, it just says because it does have the review thing under the menu. So, but when you click review it'll bring up put your number of stars in. So put 5 star in, then it won't post it.
Huh. Interesting. Trending.
It says ratings. Not enough ratings yet. Well, if I can't do.
Yeah, I see the not enough ratings yet. Yeah, that's interesting. Anyway, it's pretty cool. I've used it for a couple odds and ends, not 20 times.
Fair enough.
but definitely, yeah.
See, I've done it for my HFI manager one. I've tried out with it is more focused on UK and specifically UK defence, which is interesting. Trying to do everything open source,
It is really hard to do open source stuff.
but it seems to work. It's quite. You can ask it questions like, "How do I do this? How can I do HFI on this project?" And it'll walk you through stakeholders and artifacts you need to have and stuff. Which, it's getting there. I then want to integrate it into some SharePoint and stuff that I'm doing. So, but we will see. Oh.
I just had a really great question. I wanted to ask it. What are some human factors considerations you can bring up during regularly scheduled agile ceremonies?
Oh.
Ooh. Ooh. Okay. All right. Sprint planning. Prioritize backlog items based on their impact to user experience and usability. Okay. Backlog refinement. Ensure stories include clear acceptance criteria that address usability, accessibility, and human factors. Okay. All right. That's okay. Curious. Oh.
Wow, it's that sort of time already.
I can't believe. Yeah, we went through this whole thing, huh? We did this whole thing.
I stayed around for it. Everything.
Yeah, I can't believe it. We've done another one of these things. Look at that. Okay. Well, it's yeah, it's about that time, huh? Wow.
It is.
Tired.
Yes.
Oh.
Mm.
Okay. Well, if you've been watching along, first off, thank you. Appreciate y'all being here. That truly makes a difference. The interaction that we see on the chat is always something that we look forward to seeing. If you're just checking us out for the first time, we do this every once a week, every 2 weeks or so. Come back again. We'll be here
at some point.
And if you have human factor stories you want to share with us in the meantime, please do share those on our Discord. And if you're interested in working in the lab and doing some work there, let me know.
Cool.
Volunteer based. We love our volunteers, and are working on some really cool stuff. So yes, please stop by. And with that, I think we can go ahead and wrap up for the evening. Any other parting words there, Barry?
Nope, I'm going to bed.
Okay, you have a wonderful rest, and good luck with those pills, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for all things human factors.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our monthly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and access to the full library of Human Factors Minute, a weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.